Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Little Dangers, written by 3 ducks in a man's suit. Mice could be fought, wind could be hidden from, but rain was dangerous. Those were the words Ariel's mother had raised her on. For 3 years, she had paid attention to them in a way all children do, by dutifully remembering them without truly heeding their true warning they give. Only now did she see that the old garden pixie had meant. The raindrops themselves were only a mild threat. Hard and fast, they could stagger a creature Ariel's size with a direct hit. But the overleafs she wore absorbed the worst of the impact. The real problem was the brook. What was usually a trickle of harmless water had turned into death. Fed by the rain, the river was now over 2 meters wide, and Ariel was trapped in the center. With the rain turning the use of her wings into the act of suicide, she would have flown the distance in less than a heartbeat. Even then, the distance should have been jumpable. If she was a little closer to the shore, if she hadn't fallen so hard and hurt herself, if the rock wasn't so slick and wet and hammered by waves trying to pull her off of her limited sanctuary. But she had to try. Ariel would die out here at this rate. She would cling to the treacherous surface until her strength gave out, and then she would only pray for the mercy of a quick death, dashed against the rocks instead of suffering the slow agony of drowning. Mustering all of her strength, she drew her shaking legs under her, desperately trying to take one full breath without a mouthful of muddied water. She danced. She leapt. Feeling her foot slip on the rock, Ariel knew it was a bad jump. But all the hope was lost only when an ill-timed wave overcame the rock, robbing her momentum and casting her cruelly into the water. Animal panic assaulted Ariel as she was caught in a current that she had no hope of fighting against. She felt her wings being torn to shreds on the pebbles of the riverbed as she was plunged from the bottom and top again and again. Her thrashing limbs failed to make a single bit of difference, and her tiny lungs screamed for air. Then she felt her body catch on something that was at once soft and unyielding. For a short moment, the pressure of the water battered against her, holding her against the unknown surface like a bug on flypaper. Then she felt it unwrap her body and lift her out of the water. Even with the pouring rain now battering her body, undefended by the overleaf she had lost in the river, the feeling of the air felt miraculous. Ariel coughed and choked to chase the water from her lungs. She both heard and felt some huge object move overhead, blotting out what little light the overcast sky offered and stopping the rain as effectively as a home tree would have. Only then did she look up, still sputtering, to see how she had been saved. It was a human. Ariel's life had been saved by a mountain-sized female human who was keeping the rain off her with a strange black disc on the end of a pole that she held in her other hand. She was wearing glossy garments that deflected the raindrops that made it past the barrier, a wide-brimmed hat, and a big, toothy smile. Her hair was silvery white, and her face was covered in a network of wrinkles. Were all human faces like this? Ariel had never seen one this close before. The human stood to her full height, lifting Ariel into a frightening distance for one whose wings were unusable. Then she walked through the stream, stepping through the running water as if it posed no obstacle to her at all. A different kind of fear was invading Ariel's mind now. She was barely longer than a human's middle finger. If she squeezed her hand, even by accident, she could shatter every bone in the tiny pixie's body. The short walk took them to the local human dwelling, a monstrous construction of wood bent and cut into impossibly regular shapes. Was she going to eat me? Ariel shivered in the cold. Then the human spoke as she walked. "Oh my, you were in a tricky spot indeed. You're lucky I decided to check up on you." "What?" "I thought this rain might be catching a fairy or two out in the field. but this close to my house you're, a long way from home. Did this human know of her? Of other pixies? Did she know of the home tree? This, could be disastrous. Humans were greedy. Humans were selfish. Ariel's mother had told her to never be seen by a human, because if they discovered the home tree, they could destroy it with ease. The human took her into a small room and placed her in an open cupboard. Inside was sugar, water, warm blankets, and a smattering of neatly arranged plants and grass that smelled of home. There was a human device at the back of the room that glowed red and produced warmth. The window is open. You can leave whenever you like, but I'd recommend waiting until at least the rain has stopped and your wings have healed properly. Ariel stared in confusion at the kindly smiling face of the old woman looking back at her. I'd better head back out and make sure there are no more tricky spots like you. Stay as long as you like, dear. And with that, she walked out of sight, presumably back into the pouring rain to save others. Ariel could smell other fairies and knew she wasn't the first to use this room. For a moment, she could only sit in the warm glow and think before hunger drove her towards the sugar water. Such kindness, for no return. Maybe, just maybe, she had humans wrong. End of story. Story number 2. The Explorers, written by Shogun CDN. 200 years ago, we were alone in the universe, as were the Citrons and the Belegs and the Hiffins and the dozen other species that gathered in the hall to celebrate the great unification. Ships had come from all over the galaxy to attend the unveiling of the statues to honor the explorers, the ones responsible for bringing orphan species together to stand with each other as a long-lost family. The Citrons arrived in their sleek ships, running on impossibly fast FTL engines that their keen engineering minds had developed. The Bellings were undisputably the finest warriors in the galaxy, their great sturdy frames taking up massive space as they made their way through the crowds. In the distance, the Heffins displayed their biological superiority, each one born in perfection through gene editing. Tall and graceful, they drew attention wherever they went. We also came to pay our respects. We had designed all, incorporating the finest elements of design and function that we could bring to bear. And so, it was with the others, each species contributing to the gathering. Greetings were exchanged in multiple languages, translated by wonderful machines designed by talented shell linguists. The hall itself was adorned by plants carefully cultivated by the Thas for the occasion, with blooms rising 5 meters into the air and exploding in a chaotic display of colors. I had come to honor our parents, the explorers who found us by going where the Citrons had said the distances were too great, where the Bellings said the course was too dangerous. They had pushed forward. Where the Hiffins saw only the cold, the explorers braced themselves against the elements and smashed through the ice. It was as though they lived to break boundaries, feeding on resistance, nourished by the violence of space. As we sat in our gravity wells, they sent out their own, searching for each of us. Tens of thousands of explorers died finding us. Instead of slowing them down, each death seemed to inspire more madmen willing to strap themselves into tubes of metal, breathing stale air and eating staler food. At each new discovery, they helped drag each of us into the unknown. Their insanity was contagious, a virus spreading through the galaxy. But our own fever paled in comparison to the fire that burned in them. Even now, as we found complacency in the community of the species discovered, the explorers were still out there, further than ever from their ancestral home, forever searching, as though sitting still was a death sentence for them. And so it was that we gathered to look upon the statues of each of the humans, men and women, who were responsible for the first contacts made with each of our people. The hall extended as far as the eye could see, but it was not filled with statues. Instead, it was mainly empty. But we had built it the size we had for a reason, for we knew that we would need the room for the statues to come. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank the T5 members and Patreons. Alithia, Barky, Feudic Meridian 117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albard and Gusta, Savage Patch Papa, Lord Ashrakull, and White Van 420.